Namaste, my name is Sahara Rose, and welcome back to the Highest Self Podcast, a place where we discuss what makes you your soul's highest evolvement. Welcome, guys. I am so excited that you're here on the Highest Self Podcast. If it's your first time listening, welcome. I'm Sahara. If you've been a listener since day one, what up, boo? Well, this podcast is about raising consciousness. It is about being in touch with your soul. It is about being a conduit for the spirit that is moving through you so you can share your gifts with this planet. And some conversations I have with people just take me away to another dimension. You know, when you're talking to someone and you literally just like transport to another planet because you're so in the zone. Well, I had one of these conversations with Heather, and it is this episode. So luckily we were talking into microphones because you will be able to be a part of it. So I had been following Heather, Activation Vibration. You may recognize her from Instagram. She has an awesome, super spiritual Instagram. And I've been following her for a while, but I had never met her in person, but I knew I wanted to have her on the podcast. So I reached out to her and she said, sure, I'd love to come on. And this was our first time meeting ever. This is our first time meeting in this lifetime, and instantly we just had so much to talk about because she's someone who really is willing to go there. She wants to talk about the light, the shadows, spirit guides, different dimensions, purpose, all of it. And we go there. I mean, this is like a conversation more than an interview because both of us are just jam into the spiritual drumbeat. And I know when you're listening to this conversation, you'll be right up there on cloud nine with us. So without further ado, let's welcome Heather of Activation Vibration to the Highest Self Podcast. And before we get started, check out these brands that make Highest Self Podcast possible. This episode is brought to you by Four Sigmatic. Four Sigmatic is an incredible mushroom elixir company. I proudly drink their elixirs every single day. My favorite is their chai mix. It is insanely delicious. I quit chocolate cold turkey, and what helped me was drinking this chai mix every day. And best of all, they use stevia to sweeten it, and there's no sugars like the chai lattes you'll find at Starbucks or wherever else. And the mushrooms are really good for balancing your hormones, helping heal adrenal fatigue, healing your body on an adaptogenic level. So adaptogens really kind of relate to what your body needs. So if you are high stress, it will bring you down. If you need more energy, it will bring you up. And that's what's so amazing about adaptogens. They adapt to your body, and mushrooms, medicinal mushrooms, have a lot of adaptogenic properties. So you can head over to their website, foursigmatic.com, foursigmatic.com/Sahara. I have a little shop up there with my favorite Four Sigmatic products. So you can try it out, and you can also get 15% off any Four Sigmatic product using the code Sahara. Welcome, Heather, to the Highest Self Podcast. It's so good to have you here.
So honored. Thank you so much.
Well, the first question that I'd love to ask you is, what makes you your highest self?
Good question. What makes me my highest self? I'd have to say presence, because in presence, whatever is required in that moment for me to be my highest self is present. So just being tapped into that space, I can actively accommodate to that energy.
I love that. And you definitely have like presence when you speak, you're fully there. And I think a lot of us, we don't give people that gift of our presence, and then we're depleted and we're hungry for it. And then we look for attention in other places.
Yeah. And it's like, just in every moment, you could just tap in a little deeper, feel a little more, open your field a little bit more, and be so satiated after every encounter, even with strangers.
Yes.
Post office, driving. So many opportunities to like be soul filled.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of the reason why we don't become present is because we feel like we don't have the time. Like, oh, if I fully am present with this guy at the post office right now, he's going to start telling me all his problems, and then I'm going to run behind and da-da-da-da-da. So I'm going to not look at him while he's talking to me so he can see that I'm busy and I can keep going.
Right. Yeah. And that is just causing more illusion and distortion in so many fields for him and for you, you know?
In so many. And then that guy will stop trying.
Right.
And then he's going to be cut off. And we're just in a society that no one's connecting.
Right. It's like a contagious frequency. And then everyone just like field up, not receiving, not emitting. And it's like, no, that's what we came to Earth to do, is to connect and to experience.
Mm-hmm. So can you tell us a little bit about, first of all, how you got here and how you remain still so present, tapped in, open in today's crazy world?
How I got here, that's a hilarious question. I'm like imagining me departing from a ship right now. Yeah, that's a forever question. In this space, I think that I've always been pretty present. Growing up, I was always very present as well. And I actually experienced like a lot of trauma as a child and was put in a lot of situations where it did require my presence in order for me to essentially survive and be okay and move forward. So I've always been really keen on tapping into presence and being fully present for my own survival, essentially. But I've been able to alchemize that and evolve that. And now I'm present in the spaces that I desire to be present. And that is holding space for others and even just being present with myself and then doing so in the presence of others, which gives them permission to also be present with themselves.
I love that. And I think a lot of people who grew up, especially with an angry parent, my dad was always very angry. It teaches you to be really present because you're able to see the difference between their angry footsteps and their okay footsteps, that you're super sensitive to everything.
Right. You start observing the patterns and then knowing how to navigate them properly so that you can kind of like change the energies and hold space in whichever way you possibly can. So
did you have like an awakening point ever?
So when I was younger, I would see angels and luminous beings. Then when I was in middle school, I actually told a friend that her grandma was following her everywhere. And it really triggered her and she wasn't really open to that realm. So she actually said, if you tell anybody that, then they'll think you're crazy, like your mom. And that like stabbed me in the heart. And my abilities to see in other realms actually shut off for a few years. And I was pretty like, quote unquote, like unconscious, more so just like experiencing from the ego and just like not really tapped into my like soul presence until 2011. My angels started coming back. I actually spent 2012 by myself pretty much the whole year, like in meditation. I had my own place and didn't really see anybody else, kind of cut myself off from the outside world and everything that I wasn't in control of, but
what
was
caused
creating. It was a lot of trauma. My mom actually faked her suicide. So I actually thought she was dead for a few months, but then ended up finding out that she was alive. So there was a series of traumatic events that kind of caused me to look within. And I've always been really aware that I'm creating my reality, even when I wasn't necessarily conscious. So I had to take a step back and kind of decipher, why is it that I'm creating such traumatic events in my life, and how can I rearrange my energetic field and that in which I'm emitting so that I can start attracting things that I actually do desire to experience and that can benefit me and help me grow and evolve in a way that is like more supportive and building. So I took like a year to myself, and I was
How old were you?
2012. I was just out of high school, I think 19, 18, 19. And I was taking care of my little sister. I got custody of her. So just like really pulled all my energy back in. And from there, I started just opening up more to sharing this information. I kind of was just on my own experiencing it. And then guidance came through. My angels started coming back, and it was pretty much angels that I connected with and was channeling first for the most part. And it was very clear that it was time to start sharing this information, and I didn't really know how. It was before social media was as big as it is now, and kind of just started to like walk the path in a little more graceful energy, consciously, obviously, like trying to walk the path in a more graceful space rather than just like so many things exploding all at once. And kind of as we were talking about earlier, just allowing things to kind of align and fall into place. And it's just been a continuous journey. I'm learning every day, waking up.
And when
every
you
day.
said that, a voice came through that said that your mother needed to die for you to learn to mother yourself.
Wow. Yes. Wow. Thank you for that. Yeah. It's actually been something that I have like fully come into awareness about. I didn't have a father growing up, and then my mom checked out. I've been on my own since I was 14, but then like a few years later, then that had to happen. I had to have the Divine Mother and the Divine Father actually anchor into my being fully so that I could learn how to mother and father myself at a very young age, because it was clear, like, you're going to be sharing this later on. Like, you're walking. It's always been kind of like that knowing, even though I've experienced so much like crazy things. It's always been that knowing that there is a purpose for all of this. And so I haven't allowed myself, even as a child, to get lost in that which is occurring and to identify that which is happening to me, but instead arranging it so that I can see it, so it's happening for me.
And that's such a beautiful perspective that you could have easily gone into victim mode and said, look what happened to me. I was betrayed. I was lied to, and gone down that spiral. But you chose to rise up. And I've just seen a lot of people, and for myself, you have to go through events, especially letting go of being that child and to step in fully into you being the one who's fully in control and living your own life unapologetically. And I think that we've all chosen these kind of situations beforehand because it was like the only way we could have learned this.
Yes, absolutely. Like, I am so grateful for all of the crazy shit that has happened to me, because I know what I know now, and I am who I am now. So I'm stoked.
So you did this year of meditation, you start sharing it with people, social media comes through, and then you start sharing it on social media.
Yes.
And how is that? I mean, I'm sure a lot of people thought you were crazy.
Yeah, I'm actually very surprised at how well received that in which I share is taken. Yeah, because I share pretty like crazy out there things. Like, I'm like super open and transparent. Like, I'm channeling extraterrestrial cosmic beings. They're giving me information. Angels are assisting me in the healings that I do. And yeah, just kind of being super open about it and really like confident in that. I don't receive as much like, what is this? Or like, as much.
Why would they follow you?
Right, exactly. And if there is like some like nonsense distortion being projected towards me, like, I'm just very much so like, oh, you're not in a space to receive it. No worries. Like, let's just like delete you from the page. Like, no need to have your energy here. Like, there are many platforms out there that you can like spew your random projected hate about something that's happening in your individual life into a space. My platform's not that space.
Yeah. And I love how you can see it like that so clearly, because I think a lot of us, when we get that criticism, we take it personally. And then taking it personally then causes you to dim your light.
Right. Yes. I do always take things as like constructive criticism. Whenever I do receive a reflection, I'm like, okay, what is the truth in this? What is the rooted space in this? Is there a truth, or is this just testing me to really stand in my power? I always like consider it, but when it is something that's just like someone's closed off or not ready to receive the information, misinformed, essentially, I'm just like, oh, send you love over there. Yeah,
so good, because I do think that there's a way of saying something that's constructive and a way that's saying it that's just full of hate.
Right.
Yes. So you do awesome videos, and you talk a lot about shadows and integrating the shadows and who you are. And I know that you're a Scorpio also. So can you share with us a little bit about what do shadows mean in your perspective?
The shadow to me is the aspect of self that is more in a space where there's not much love. It's more of like a lacking energy. Perhaps it's derived of fear, which can translate as hate or even depression or sadness. So it's the lower vibrational aspects of self, which everyone has and everyone needs, and they're not to fear at all. The shadow aspect can also be classified as the ego, the aspect of ego that is not in harmony with the soul. So the shadow can actually manifest and express in many, many different forms. It's just different per individual and their life purpose and where they're currently at on their journey. So the shadow can actually evolve for each person as well. The shadow can appear as like the performer ego for one aspect of someone's life. And then as they evolve, they go into a depressed state, and the shadow can be more of like a depressive, sad, like poor me or victim state.
So would this be different shadows, or that same shadow taking different forms?
It's perspective, but I believe that it is that same shadow just kind of evolving, just as all aspects of us evolve, just taking different forms.
So when people talk about integrating the shadow, let's say my shadow is, I'm super jealous. So does that mean I should own that I'm super jealous, or own it for the sake of overcoming it?
Wow, beautiful question. Yeah, I think that there is an extent to which we should own things, like, but not necessarily identify with them to where you like rewire yourself to be that being.
Right, like I'm just a jealous person, I can't help it.
Right. Yeah. It's more so like, I'm jealous about this. Okay, how do I fuel myself in other ways? What will make me not jealous about this? Okay, I'm jealous because he or she is standing in their power or creating things. Okay, time for me to stand in my power and create things. It's like the shadow wants to be seen and acknowledged. So when we can personally acknowledge and fully see our shadow, like, hey, shadow, like imagining it in front of us, like, I fully see you and I'm allowing you to express yourself to me right here, right now. What is it that you want to say? Okay, and then taking that and then building from it, as opposed to just like revealing the shadow and then just sitting with it in that space. It's like elevating the shadow so that the shadow too can rise and integrate with the higher aspects of self.
I love that. So it's taking that shadow and bringing it to light. So then it's not really a shadow, but but then do you think that then we'll just find another shadow?
Well, perhaps that is what the human journey is all about. But yeah, I think that we can alchemize the power of the shadow as well. So like the jealous shadow could be alchemized as fuel for passion projects. Like, in order for me to feel like I'm enough, then I want to be creating or I want to be successful in the projects that I'm passionate about. So kind of like alchemizing it as fuel, like when you feel a little bit of jealousy coming in about something else, it's like, all right, stop that, turn my attention elsewhere on myself. All right, how do I build from here?
So a lot of people, because comparison and jealousy, I think, is a big thing with social media. And I think a lot of times people aren't cognizant of it when they're doing it. They just say, that person's bothering me. And it becomes a person thing.
Right.
And they're not realizing it's this greater issue. So let's say I'm saying it really pisses me off to see people who are successful and making money because I'm working this job that I hate and it's just bothering me. So should I unfollow everyone who's triggering me, or should I keep going into that? What would you say?
Well, I'd say, what is it that is specifically triggering you about that person? Because there's obviously a connection there. And if you originally were following that person or felt drawn to that person, it's for a reason. So perhaps like separating the triggered emotion from the person, and like actively doing this and being in a space to where you're like taking initiative and doing this for yourself. And that's like a very big first step. And being able to fully identify what it is about this person that triggers you. And if it is something like a wound that needs more healing or needs more time or assistance in order to heal, then perhaps that's too much for you in your field right now, maybe unfollow, and then the universe will just bring you other scenarios to trigger that until you are ready. And then you can reveal it, up-level it, raise the vibration of it, bring the shadow to the light, and then alchemize it so that you can actually like come into a space where you're not being triggered by that energy, but instead being like, okay, they're doing it. They're successful in making money. Like, all right, I got to get out my notebook right now. Or like, okay, how do I do this for myself? But if you are ready to just step into that energy, then yes, acknowledging it. Okay, it's actually this about this person that's triggering me. They were able to transcend this issue and become successful. I have a similar issue. Okay, how do I transcend this myself? And then just like taking full responsibility. Like I love taking full responsibility for all that happens, like in my reality. Like, okay, how did I create this and why did I create this? And if someone is really annoying me, maybe they're just being slow, or maybe it's whatever it is, I immediately turn it back to me like, okay, I'm annoyed because they're being slow. I think I need to slow down right now. Like, okay.
Yeah. And I think most of us don't want that responsibility. And I say it all the time. It's not a sexy word, but it's fucking all about responsibility.
Yeah.
Like everything around you, you are creating. And I think a lot of people on social media, they think it's random, but even social media is not random.
Right.
Like even the stuff showing up is the universe sending you back something that you are co-creating in your mind. It's just using technology. Like I think people think like the universe skips technology and like that doesn't mean anything. Like it's still showing up for you for a reason. And I see a lot of people, they're like, unfollow anyone that doesn't make you feel good. And yes, I agree to an extent.
Agreed.
Because it's also like, well, what am I going to do? Just live in a bubble of people who I feel like are below me so I feel safe and comfortable?
Right. Yeah, like not me. No, that's not my path.
Yeah.
No, I want to be following people who are inspiring me and checking me and checking my ego. Like, okay, I thought I was doing it good. Like I could do it even better.
Right. And that doesn't mean following people who have like model bodies who you could never have. Like that's not inspiration. No. But I think a lot of people, when they see, especially a woman in their power, that's triggering for them.
Yep.
And then they say, well, she's a know-it-all.
Right.
Or who does she think she is?
Right.
And that I know that that's bothered people about me, and I'm sure that's bothered people about you.
Yeah.
But I've had so many people come back to me and be like, yeah, you used to really piss me off.
Right?
And now I get it.
Yeah. It's funny that you brought that up as an example, because that's a theme that I've experienced where people have said like, you really triggered me. Like just that you had gone through so much and were still so happy and then still are creating and doing so much. And it's literally
because
like,
it's the invitation for them to do the same. And that's a lot of responsibility.
Right. It's giving them permission. Like, yeah, this is possible. You could do it. But then of course, once they meet us, they're like, oh, wait, you like care about me more than I care about myself. Like, thank you for being real. So there's like that projection of being fake,
right?
Too, because there is a lot of fake. There's a lot of fake stuff out there.
A lot of fake stuff.
Yeah, a lot of distortion. A lot of illusion.
Yeah, and I think that's because when I started hearing first about the shadow work like 5 years ago, I was like, why would someone want to integrate their shadow? Like, isn't the whole point that we're supposed to overcome our shadow and like go towards light? And like very much the Vedic perspective is, Hanuman is the god who is a monkey and a human. And it represents transcending the monkey mind and conditioning it to move higher, whereas that shamanic view is the opposite, and it's like work with the monkey, like you are the monkey. And then I'm like, oh, this is like totally different perspectives, and it's like, and I see you bringing in more of that shamanic perspective and viewpoint to it, which it's really grounding. And I was telling you, your energy is super like earthy and grounding, and I think it's what people need, because that super yogic, disciplined path is already how our society's operating.
Right, exactly. That is just bringing like another aspect of spirituality into that same kind of linear like functionality where, I truly believe that the more that we open up to these things and then do not fear them, because essentially if you resist something, it'll just continue to persist. So if we're able to actually open up, reveal things, and not be emotionally or mentally or spiritually or physically triggered by them or affected by them, like still just being able to hold space for that aspect, that's all it wants to do, is just be acknowledged and revealed, and then it can essentially do its thing because it's come here to benefit you as well, and then it can provide its gifts that it has for you.
Yes. I love that so much. So a lot of people listening to this podcast, they're looking to find their purpose. And, maybe they're spiritual, they're into wellness, they're into this kind of stuff. They don't really know how to like fully step into that. So what advice do you have for someone who's either looking for their purpose or maybe they don't even know what that purpose is?
Right. Yeah, I always say that finding your purpose is through your passion, always. Like, if you are looking for your purpose and you don't know where to start by like dropping it all. clearing it all, releasing it all, coming into a space, preferably like in a comfortable like area where you won't be disturbed, like actually taking time to do this practice where you clear everything and you release everything that you identify with and have like structured yourself to be, even the recent things that you've recently like adopted and acquired as part of your personality, allowing everything to shed, and then tapping into your heart and then feeling like, what does my heart actually want to do? And, you know, we hear all the time, like, follow your heart. But it actually is like, what does your heart feel good doing? And how can you, like, fully allow that to be you? Like, how can you start acting from your heart and start being from your heart? Because we literally, like, put on these, like space suits, but they're like earth suits, and then, like, block out what it is that we actually care about and want to be doing just so that we can survive the next day and get on to the next day and so on and so on. So in order to find your purpose, you have to be okay with like essentially like losing all of that or just releasing all of that, even if it's just for a moment, because your purpose may be something that you can integrate into what you're already doing. That's the best part. So once you release it and you come into a space where you can actually identify, where is my heart? Like, what do I want to do? Is it with earth? Is it with people? Is it online? Is it public speaking? Is it one-on-one with people? Like, perhaps jotting down on a piece of paper, like, okay, do I want to help earth, people, or whatever it is? And again, like, helping people could be in the fashion industry or in the hair industry or meditation or yoga. And just kind of like jotting it down, okay, do I feel better one-on-one or do I feel better when I'm helping collectively? And then just starting to like kind of brainstorm and bring in different ideas, opportunities, possibilities. Because even as you write it down on a piece of paper, you're literally like opening up opportunities of different realities for yourself. So I think like taking the time and the space to really like sit with yourself and shed all that has been kind of like notched onto you and that you've been carrying and kind of like built yourself into, letting that all go and actually coming to a space where it's like, what do I feel good doing? What feels good to me? And then allowing yourself to embody that fully, because often people are afraid of shifting into a whole nother being and being, but I've done so much to build myself to be this person. But it's like, yeah, babe, it's time for you to evolve. Shift, allow the shift.
Definitely. And I think that sometimes we're so far away from what feels good that we don't even know.
Right.
You know, they're like, feel good is Netflix.
Exactly.
Feels good is numbing.
Is binge eating.
Right.
Or is, drinking to like black out.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, well, I realize I feel good in conversations like this, but then it's like, how do I make that become the thing that I do all the time? And that's where it's like stepping into no man's land and figuring your way through.
Exactly. That's exactly it. It's like stepping into no man's land.
Yeah.
And where it's like, okay, no one else has existed before me in this space because no one has ever walked your path before, because this is your path. And we no longer live in a paradigm where we are just following what has been implemented and placed before us. We are now collectively, individually walking and creating our own paths. So I think that that's also what may throw people off a little bit.
Because there's no rules.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's no way that it should look. So even as we do come into a space like, okay, well, this feels good. Okay, I'm going to start having these conversations more with people, or just start doing it with myself more. And then you're like starting to take the first few steps. And because there's no indication of like, hey, you're doing it. Like, this is the right way. Like, keep going. There's light at the end of this, I promise.
Right.
People are like, it didn't work out.
Exactly.
And then just let it all go.
Yeah, the people give up way too soon. I think people are like waiting to be chosen.
Right.
It's like, oh, I'm going to do it. And then someone's going to pick me to live the life of my dreams. And that never happens.
It's not the chosen, it's the one who chose.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think it's because in school we're brought up like, okay, well, the one who does the best, or you go to an audition and one person's the lead actor and the lead this, that we're like, okay, if I put myself out there, someone's going to hire me to be Oprah.
Right.
And it's like, there is no Oprah.
Right.
That paradigm doesn't exist anymore.
It doesn't. It literally doesn't. Like, you got to create it.
Yeah.
You got to
There's
create
bajillions
it.
of Oprah, and thank God for that, because it's no longer a monopoly.
Right.
Okay, real talk, the product I'm about to tell you about is literally the best thing I've ever put into my mouth, and that is saying a lot. And this is Organifi's Gold. So essentially, it is the hot chocolate of your dreams with none of the sugar and all of the turmeric and reishi, with a touch of ginger as well. It is delicious on its own, just with water. When I was on my panchakarma and I couldn't have any sugar or chocolate, anything like that, I brought my Organifi Gold with me. Panchakarma approved, and all I needed was hot water, and it was the perfect, just sweet, soothing, desserty taste that I so deeply crave after meals. And it makes me feel so calm, so restorative. It is my optimal nighttime tonic. And literally, I've gotten all my friends on it, and I'm pinching myself that they are my podcast sponsors, because even if they weren't, I would still be telling everyone about it. So head over to Organifi.com and use coupon code Sahara for 20% off. That is Organifi, ORGANIFI.com. Use coupon code Sahara for 20% off your gold. Anyone else on the lookout for a natural deodorant that actually works? Just me? Well, I'm super excited to tell you about Mayra. Mayra delivers obsession-worthy, naturally effective deodorant that looks as good as it smells. Mayra makes their natural deodorant with a custom blend of essential oils that release over time to keep you fresh and barley powder to keep you dry. Their formula is hardworking and long-lasting with no toxic anything, no aluminum or parabens. Its refillable case helps reduce up to 50% versus typical drugstore deodorants. You see, I am so passionate about reducing plastic waste after swimming in an ocean full of plastic in Bali. So I was so stoked to find Mayra and be able to reduce my plastic usage while still using really good deodorant. Get 50% off your first order and get started today for just $5. Visit mymyro.com/highestself and use promo code highestself. Again, visit mymyro.com/highestself and use promo code highestself for 50% off your order. Are you interested in having a career focused on health and wellness? Well, if so, then the universe is calling you to become a holistic health coach. I am offering this incredible deal, a discount of $1,500 off my alma mater, Institute for Integrative Nutrition, which is the world's largest nutrition school, with guest teachers such as Deepak Chopra, Chris Carr, Dr. Hyman, and Dr. Andrew Whale, and so many others. It is split between 6 months of health coaching programs teaching you hundreds of nutritional theories, including Ayurveda, as well as 6 months of business coaching. And as an additional bonus, I am offering a webinar where I will teach you how to use social media to create a thriving career as a health coach. On top of that, I have created a private Facebook community just for the Highest Self podcast listeners who are becoming health coaches to connect with each other, meet up with each other, and support one another on this journey. So if you're interested, send an email over to Sahara, Sahara, at eatfeelfresh.com with subject IIN. Again, Sahara at eatfeelfresh.com with subject IIN. And I will personally send you back the email that will allow you to get a $1,500 off discount, as well as my business coaching webinar and the private Facebook group. I'm so excited for you to begin your journey as a health coach. So you talk about how this time, it's a crazy time. It's shifting. So Can you speak more to what's happening with the collective right now?
Yes, definitely. So we are experiencing on Earth for the first time in this way, a collective shift in consciousness. So we've been resonating at a certain frequency, which is like the third dimensional conscious awareness. And we are moving into a space of the fifth dimensional conscious awareness, where there is no more duality, where it's like so much light and dark. Everything's actually integrated and working in harmony with each other. And that's why I feel that revealing the shadow so that it can work in harmony with the soul is the best way for us to do it, at least as humans right now. Those who are already fully tapped into 5D may feel, I'm just going to focus on my higher aspects of self, to each their own. But this is the paradigm shift. And so in order for this to occur, it's got to get pretty crazy. You know, there's got to be some chaos and things have to fall, because there are a lot of structures in place that have been in place for eons now that are no longer resonant with where we're going. And some of those things will transmute and just shift into a higher consciousness a little more gracefully. But a lot of the things that are resisting, like the government and a lot of the more like masculine aspects of expression in this realm, are going to have to fall. They're going to have to shatter, because that's essentially how they prefer to transmute, is to have some big crash. So our people are experiencing a similar thing, where many are shifting with kind of like this more graceful, like path of higher consciousness, where it's just kind of coming in and they're being led divinely. And it's kind of like this bliss state that they're just stepping into. Of course, they definitely experience their traumas as well. But most people are having to shatter a bit, are having to kind of crack a bit. So all of our wounds, traumas, and not just ours, but our ancestors and our past lives, all the things that we have carried with us, that our soul has carried with us, is now having to come to surface so that it can be revealed, so that we can transmute everything and integrate it properly to come into this conscious awareness.
Yeah, so beautifully said. Just love that. You should start a podcast too. But that's exactly what is happening. And I think for a lot of people, they're in that 3D, just stepping into the 5D, and it feels really scary and far away, and they're not seeing anyone else around them doing it. It's like that indigo level, which are like the first people, like I think you and I were definitely indigos, who are like the indigos are breaking that shell, and like we're going to teach our families and everyone around us a new way. And then after, like the crystal children who've kind of grown up in this more open world, so they're like just able to be themselves, and then the rainbow are just like, I'm totally fucking myself.
Yeah. Yes.
So I think a lot of us in our generation, still a lot of indigos. So it's just like, well, what does 5D look like? How am I going to pay my bills? And how is it going to, you know?
Right. And how do I even know that it's real?
How do I know that it's real?
Still desiring to confirm things only if it's tangible. And only if it's, just like all things are temporary and we experience fluxes of things. When people are like, oh, I tapped into 5D and I felt it, I know that it's real. Oh, wait, but now I'm sad again and my car just got ruined. Or like, I'm no longer living in 5D. That's not how it works. Yeah. It's actually about bringing your 5D conscious awareness into those times. Okay, how do I see this from a higher perspective? Okay, my car got ruined. Wait, I have insurance. Oh, now I have a better car. Like, or the person that I connected with, or this, just seeing things from a fifth dimensional conscious awareness, where it's like, oh, this is all really for me.
Love that. And 2012 was your year that you really went through your transition. It's the year I went through my transition. And can you speak more about the year of 2012 and its significance?
Yes. Yeah. So on the Mayan calendar, it said that December 21st, 2012 was the beginning of the new paradigm. And it's actually really interesting. Many of us, or many, thought that the prediction was that the calendar ends on that day, but actually it begins, the new paradigm began on that day. So it was at the end of 2012. And funny enough, I just went to Guatemala to the Mayan pyramids, and I discovered that the actual day that the calendar did end was October 28th, 2011, and that just happens to be my birthday.
Oh my God.
Literally 2011 is when my angels came back too.
Wow.
Yeah, so the prediction, there actually isn't an ancient calendar prediction for the paradigm that we're moving into, which is pretty epic.
So they had predictions until either October 2011 or December 2012, and then they just kind of stopped.
Yeah, because it wasn't known how we're going to take this shift and what space we're going to move into. And
guys, these are thousands of years of predictions. Like they predicted 9/11, like everything.
Yes. Oh, super on point. Like if you actually do the research, there's no doubt about it. You're like, oh, okay, wow, now I know. Yeah. But there wasn't a prediction essentially for where we're going into. And that's why so many guides and cosmic beings and angels and deities and gods and goddesses are now coming through to relay information to so many people. I know you're a channel as well, because we are here to now guide and ourselves as well as everyone else through this time in real time. Like right here, right now, because that's what this paradigm is essentially. It's living in the now, fully and making the future the now fully, as opposed to like working up to something. It's more, okay, I'm going to embody it now.
Yes. So true. So some people, they've asked me this, and it's a good question and it makes sense. They say, well, aren't we always at the brink of a new time? Why is now any different?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course we are always at the brink of a new time, but this specific new time, just like on a galactic level, the amount of photonic light and cosmic rays that are literally infiltrating the earth, and this can be measured through astrology or just like any logical desires that you have to measure this fact. It's shown. The science is out there. This is such a new time, and the amount of spiritual awakenings that people are having within their bodies physically, as well as mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, there's just like no doubt about it, truly.
And if you think about it, like our amazing feat in the 1920s was like, women can vote.
Right.
Like, think of where we were. Like, yes, that was the best we've ever been, but look at where we were. And I mean, we still have a long way to go.
Yes.
But I think the internet really helped.
Absolutely.
And I think we chose to incarnate at the time of this internet because it's just like putting everyone at the same level and just allowing the information that we want to be spread rather than what 7 companies want us to know.
They're spoon feeding us. Yeah. And everything is accessible now. Yeah. The information is available to everyone now at any moment.
Yes.
Where, years ago, it was like by bird. And it was, I still talk to the birds. But
my little owl comes and tells me I'm ready for Hogwarts.
Right. Yeah. And it was like, the information was so limited that it makes sense why there was so much darkness and so many people were just kept in their own little tunnels. And, well, my parents taught me to do this, so I'm going to do this. Oh, well, my teacher taught me to do this, so I'm going to do this. And now it's like, okay, everything that I've been taught out here, like, it doesn't resonate. And so I'm going to look up my own stuff and I'm going to start embodying my true self.
Yeah. And I think people are really worried about social media and they're saying, oh, these young kids are on social media all the time. But in a way, it's a great thing.
Yeah.
Because if your parents are racist and you're on social media and you're being like, that doesn't freaking make sense.
Right.
Then, and a lot of these kids are saying, well, actually social media raised me. And that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah.
We have to drop our duality of it being good or bad. It just is.
Right. Exactly. And just like with everything, it can be good or bad. Food can be good or bad. It can heal you or it can hurt you. Everything can be good or bad. So it's just having the conscious awareness of what is your intention when using social media? What are you actually looking for? And then what are you putting out there? So it's honestly like a great reflection tool as well. Just like looking past like what you've posted and like, okay, where was I coming from in all of these different spaces?
Oh yeah, it's great for that. Oh my God, go on Facebook. You're like, I wrote that. That was me. But it's not a cell in you actually was that person. And I think now we're realizing, now that we have these time capsules of social media, we're able to see like, we're actually not the same person.
Right. Like literally evolving into a new being entirely as we shed so much of what we actually are not is now finally being released from us. Yeah.
So speaking of shedding, you wrote this beautiful story on your Instagram about you were in Peru or something and you were in a ceremony and you took off your top, you're bleeding into the earth. So can you share that incredible story with us?
Yes, absolutely. So it was our first medicine ceremony in Peru. We were hosting.
And medicine is ayahuasca.
Well, this one actually was mushrooms.
Mushrooms, okay.
Yeah. So we had 4 different medicine ceremonies, and the first one was mushrooms, and then the other ones were ayahuasca.
Just like psilocybin or a different kind of mushroom?
Yeah. Okay. Psilocybin.
Psilocybin. Okay. I'm like, I can't pronounce anything.
Good girl.
Psycho.
Telepathy on point. So
yes. Thanks, girl.
Yeah. So and we actually just took a pretty small dose, but the energy of the land, we went to the ancient Incan temples where the Incan princesses actually educated. So it was like their schools, but it was more of like ancient mystery knowledge. It was like the real knowledge, not
Love
like
that.
1 + 1 is 2.
Yes.
And so you could feel that energy there. Within seconds, we had our little ceremony, we blessed everything. Within seconds of taking the mushrooms, my body was like, take off your shirt now. And it was like, I just met all of these women. I was I was co-hosting the retreat. We had 20 women and literally just met them. This was the night before in Peru here. Like, it's very new for everyone. And it was just like, yeah, you got to go for it. And so I was like, all right. So I just took off my top and started dancing. And at first I could see like some of the girls were like, whoa, okay. Like, and then others were like,
what did I sign up for?
Right, literally. Like, we're doing mushrooms in here. I'm like crazy dancing, like topless in these like ancient
to no music
temples. Like we hiked 3 hours in to get to these temples out in the middle of nowhere. Like the kind of space where you're like, there's no way I'm making it back home. So it was like very new. But I felt called, and it ended up liberating all of the women to feel comfortable. Some women who they're like, I've never even gotten naked in front of my boyfriend. And I felt comfortable in front of everyone to be topless here. And yeah, so I was on my cycle that day. I swear my cycle had waited for me to actually step foot on that land in order to come. It was like a few weeks late. And I fasted all day. And I decided that I needed to eat. So I went and grabbed an apple from my bag and was just holding the apple with me the whole time and just kept really feeling like the life force and the prana coming from this apple and the codes that it holds and how I will ingest this apple and then it will become my body. And that's where my hair comes from. That's where my skin rejuvenates from. That's where my eyelashes come from. It's literally from the food and the prana in which I'm putting in my body. And so I was like singing to this apple, like worshiping this apple. And then I just kept it with me. And then I had to go change my diva cup. And so I went and like ventured off and felt called to walk away from the group and walk to the top of this hill. And I went and I changed myself, and I actually like was looking at my blood before I was pouring it back into the earth and decided to actually just keep some of it with me. And so I just like poured a little bit on my opposite hand, on my left hand, and then I was holding the apple in my right hand still. And a wind just rushed over me, and it was like, sit down at the top of this hill. So I started really tapping in, sat down, the trees started dancing, moving, the wind picked up. It was literally like a portal was being created. Like one would think that this was a tornado happening, but I knew that it was like higher guidance coming through. And it felt really familiar, but also very different. So I was very intrigued with the like rush of newness, the new energy that was coming through. So I was very attentive to it. I sat down, I had my blood in my left hand, which is the receiving hand, and the apple in my right hand, which is the giving hand. And Yeshua, who is also known as Jesus Christ, appeared in the sky before me, like actually appeared as this luminous being. And I didn't grow up religious, Christian or Catholic. I've never been baptized, but I've connected with like the Christ energy before, but not necessarily like I haven't fully called upon like Jesus Christ. So for him to appear right there, like I've connected with like Egyptian deities like Isis and many cosmic beings. And so for him to appear specifically was very like, wow. So I just like sat there and he started channeling information to me. So much was making sense. And first he came and he said, the blood that you hold in your receiving hand, this is your blood. This blood has always been sacred. It has never been dirty. This is you. And it was like, wow, okay, I give it back to the earth. I give it back to the earth. And then was holding the apple, and it was like, the apple has never been forbidden. This is not the forbidden fruit. Earth Mother has birthed this food for you to nourish your bodies. And I started bawling uncontrollably. And I like put in work to cry. Like I try to cry. I like actually hold like rituals and like practices where I let myself cry. So this was like one of the most healing, like full belly cries I've ever experienced. And I started seeing like a higher self perspective of the collective through the different years and kind of our evolution as a collective of humanity, and how women have been so suppressed and men have been so suppressed too, and just how everything's been so distorted. And I felt that my cries were helping to transmute that energy, transmuting. And then he proceeded to say that I was an incarnate of Yeshua at one time, and I believe many people are. Not everyone, but many people are, and this was something that I specifically was really, really connected to. And he was like, this is why I've made you so strong physically. This is why and he just started explaining a lot of personal things about me. And he's like, it's because women are to rise in this life. You had to hold this power as a woman in this life because it's time for you all to rise. And it was really like embedded within me at that moment. Like, I will never stray away from my mission. I will always choose to embody my purpose first and foremost before anything else, before the ego, before my human desires. Like, I really vowed and devoted myself at that moment to honor my purpose and mission forever. So it was very shifting for me, and one who isn't, connected to the higher realms readily and doing medicine may say, well, you were just tripping. Perhaps, but it's something that, for me, it's so real and so tangible. I actually see these things physically, and I am confirmed about what I experience from the higher realms so continuously and throughout my life that it's oh, if you don't believe it, no worries. I don't even have to share it with you. I'm super satiated just experiencing my own experience where it's it's cool. I don't need to convince you of anything. But that experience shifted something within me that now I carry for the rest of my life. So that's the best part about these medicine ceremonies and these spiritual phenomena experiences when we connect with the higher realms, because it's not just you trip one time and then you wake up and you put your earth suit back on and you go back to your life. That's an option, but every fiber in your being will be insisting that you revert back to that space where you opened your heart and you connected with the higher realms.
Absolutely. So beautifully said. Thank you for sharing that story. When I read that, I was like, oh my God, this is stunning. And just that visual of the red blood and the red apple and and it's so sad just how that story has been distorted and how that's led to so much pain and suffering and war for centuries later. And how I really believe that now one of the predictions they made of the new paradigm was that we're going to go back to moon worship, which we're doing. Everyone's posting about the full moon and new moons, and that we're going to go back to sharing our blood with the earth.
Yes. Yeah. It's a Hopi Prophecy, one of the ancient tribes who are revered as being very knowledgeable and very connected. They said that once women start giving their blood back to earth, there will be no more war. There will be no more need for bloodshed. So in a sense, our bodies are composed of earth. Our blood belongs to earth because we are of earth. So when women start to honor their cycles and the natural epicness of what is actually occurring when we have our cycles and when we're bleeding, when we start to give our blood back to the earth, then there will be no more need for blood to be shed in other ways through hate and through war and through fighting.
So beautiful. And if you think about that one on a literal level of that blood is literally so good for the earth and it provides more fruit and nature and abundance and fertility that we can live off of, which will eliminate war, which is mostly caused for scarcity. But then also if we just empowered women, there wouldn't be this level of over the top patriarchy, which is the only way that war can fuel. I mean, there's such wounded masculine in every war. I've never seen a war that was caused by women.
Right. Yeah.
Has there ever been one? I don't know. Wow. Someone can fact check this. I've never seen it.
Wow, that's a great point.
But I think there's just this element to the feminine in general, which a lot of men have too, that's compassion and community, whereas that Shiva masculine consciousness, when over the top, can turn into ego and fear of the feminine and fear of the period. And that's even when I go to Bali and I see these signs that say women who are bleeding cannot come. And now a lot of women, especially Balinese women, are fighting back and they're saying, why are we dirty when we have in Hindu temples, women who are bleeding cannot enter because you're seen as too dirty.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's
whoa,
from where the Kama Sutra comes from that honored the yoni. There are yoni temples. There are temples of just sex gods. But now because of, and it's not truly that women are dirty. Some say that it's coming from the fact that they wanted women to rest and they didn't want women to go to the temple. They wanted them to stay home at rest. So it's not coming from patriarchy.
Right. But like that's a possibility in our reality. Like women are resting, they're raising the family and making
right. It's not like we're literally just sitting here doing nothing on our periods. And maybe you would want to worship. And I think it's coming more from that patriarchal energy.
And wanting us to not be fully sovereign and empowered in our own power. Like actually knowing when I'm bleeding, I'm like most connected. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So now when you get your period, how do you live your life?
Yeah. So recently it's been syncing to the full moon, which is
so is mine. I saw you were just bleeding. I was like, yeah. And I saw like Teal Swan and a few others. I was like, yep, we're all bleeding on the full moon.
Wow.
Witches. Yeah.
We're all coming together. It's all for a purpose. Yes. But we'll just, keep it on casual for now. Yeah. So it's been more of like a completion type of energy. So more recently I've been feeling lots of like energy coming to me a few days before and during, at least just like the first day, a lot of energy. So I've been channeling creatively during my cycle. And then when it's the new moon, then often I'll just like kind of become more reclusive, just pull my energy back in. But always, no matter what, the practice is to be fully present, obviously, with everything that's occurring within me. So I notice that my cycle is never the same every month. So I'll tap in and feel like, okay, whoa, I'm feeling really exhausted during this cycle. And then it'll kind of make sense. Okay, this month I was emitting a lot of energy. I was doing a lot of like external creating. So I need to come back in. So I'll just like listen to exactly where I'm at. I love doing like blood rituals where I'm like writing. I love to write positive affirmations, like my desired manifestations daily. And when I'm bleeding, then I'll often like use my blood during that and like actually put it on the paper, which is like a very powerful practice.
I know Teal Swan does paintings.
Yeah, I painted with my blood too. And I always will give my blood back to the earth and do like a little mini ritual. And when we say ritual, it doesn't have to be like a 3-hour ceremony. You have to be prepared. You have to have all these tools and you have to, be in a nature environment. Like I live in a city, I can't do it. Yeah. No, it can literally be like 5 minutes. Go outside to a tree, wherever you feel called. Say thank you to Mother Earth. Thank you to your body for releasing this blood, and then give your blood back to the earth. Literally just pour it back into the earth and actually feel the shift that happens, because it may like sound crazy, but you can feel where your blood goes. And so when you give your blood back to the earth, a part of you that has released from your womb, the most sacred space within you, literally the space that connects with other realms in order to bring life from another realm into this realm, that blood is now going back into the earth and now feeding and fueling the earth, and the earth is taking that and alchemizing it. So it's such a deep connection that happens.
So beautiful. And I've never done that, partially because I'm afraid of using the Diva cup, because I'm afraid I'm never going to find it again. Right. But I need to practice.
It's a little hard to use, not gonna lie. Like everyone's like, I use the Diva cup and I am an expert professional. Yeah, I had to work out.
Like even my jade egg, I got the one with like the holes in it, so you could put like the dental floss to like pull it out. Yeah, I think
just in case you don't lose it.
Yeah, but I really would love to do that ritual. And Steven's going to come home. I'm like, I painted you this. Or chubby in red. God, where's that from? He's a Scorpio though, so he'd be super into it.
Yeah,
so
he'd be like, ooh, that's really weird. I like it.
I love it. Framing it. Yeah. But it's so important. Also, like a lot of men are afraid of periods. They're afraid of blood. And what a turnoff is that? First of all, if you're a dude listening, major turnoff.
Right.
But it makes women ashamed of it.
Right. Yeah. I've always been really comfortable like with my body and with my blood. So I'm never like, oh, let me just use the little ladies' room. I'm like, oh, I'm bleeding. Oh, like I'm leaking now. Like I'll be right back. And always just very open and casual.
You're like,
about
it was dark red today.
Yes,
today.
Literally.
Yeah.
Literally.
The forecast for my period blood is.
Literally. Or like, do you want to go do this? I'm bleeding extra today. I don't think that's
I feel like everyone needs to know when I'm bleeding.
Like just wear all red.
Yeah.
Wear a red jumpsuit, like saying it without saying it.
Yes. I know. I just ordered the Thinx underwear that you bleed in. I'm very excited.
Let me know how you like them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, but just being like super casual and open about it. And I've obviously had people or dudes be like, oh, you're bleeding. And then I just like very casually don't get emotionally triggered by it because it's just, where they're at.
Yeah.
And just being like, oh, no. This actually is the blood that would have been used to create a human life and is a part of my most sacred space. So this is actually more sacred than normal blood. So yeah, that's where we're at.
And really, like, it's uterus lining more than it's like blood. So I think a lot of people who have that like fear, they are not really understanding what it is. Like, it actually is your womb's lining that would have been a human.
Yes. Yes, that would have been a human. Like, it is so sacred.
So sacred and so beautiful. And definitely time for women to connect deeper with it. Mm-hmm. So now with all of this incredible wisdom that you have, what advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
Ooh, wow, my 20-year-old self. Well, first, I would like hug her and just tell her that I love her, like show her so much love and just remind her how divine and in alignment she is. 20 years old was definitely a chaotic time. I would just remind her to continue to follow what it is that feels right for her and not listen to the projections of other people telling her what to do and where to go. And yeah, I would just instill like straight trust. Like, it's not that it just gets better. It's like, you remember why everything happened. Like, this is all purpose. Stay connected. Like, keep doing the work. Do not fear. Just go for it. Sing more, dance more, celebrate more, laugh as much as possible. And yeah, there's no wrong way to do anything, because even the mistakes that I've made or the wrong paths that I've taken have all led me here. So essentially they're all the right path. So just to like not fear, just trust.
Love that. And what is next for you?
What is next? So much. Like, I have so much that I'm like creating and like, this is what's next. But then like my guides are literally laughing hysterically right now. They're like, as if you know. Like, there's so much to come. I'm working on a website right now where I'm going to be channeling collective information consistently. And it's going to be kind of like a little hub for starseeds to gather and connect in. So I'm like so excited about that. I've been working on it for like 2 months. Creating a light code deck of cards. I also do readings for people. So I'm going to be channeling encoded information into those cards so that everyone can do their own readings and they can start connecting to that source directly. I think that that's like really where we're all going, is connecting directly to source as opposed to through a practice or finding it out through someone. Like, it is in a practice, but it's more within you. Like, even if you aren't able to uphold your practice that connects you with higher source, you can still tap in at any moment. It's literally just becoming present. So it's not outside yourself, it's within. So pretty much everything that I'm doing, more content, more videos, more writing, like, I'm like literally just getting started. Like, I've been doing a lot nonstop, but I'm like literally just getting started. So yeah, just more information to empower people and remind them who and what they are and what their purpose is. And that could literally just be by reminding them of something so small that triggers this domino effect of their whole reality.
So beautiful. And when you were saying about how we're shifting away from even needing like a practice, I so feel that. And someone shared me this word yesterday called claircognizance.
Yes.
And just to like this knowing.
The knowing.
And I'm like, yes, that's exactly what it is. It's just this knowing of truth that's not coming from anything. It's not a vision. It's just there.
Yes.
I think we're moving into that, which is like just the new way of being. This is the new normal.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, because there are so many clairs, clairaudience, clairsentience, where you feel things or you see things or you hear things. But I actually resonate the most with claircognizance, where it's just a knowing, where it actually just is. And so instead of having to receive the information tangibly through a sense where it's like, no, I saw it. Oh, I heard it come through. It's like, oh no, I just know.
And I think a lot of people are like that, because I used to be like, well, I'm not a clairvoyant because I don't see things or hear or whatever. It's just, I don't know, I just kind of know some stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that that's how a lot of us are receiving it. And so we're thinking that we're not gifted because of that.
Right. Yeah. It's just like, you got to fully trust your intuition.
Yes.
Like, know that that is actually higher guidance. And where is that higher guidance coming from? Whether it is coming from an individual entity or energy, essentially it is just another aspect of you. Like, listen, it's you.
Yeah. And that's another thing too. It's like, I think we've done a lot of labeling. Is it my spirit guide? Is it my angel? Is it Archangel Michael? Is it who is it? It's like we're humanizing it too much. It doesn't fucking matter.
It doesn't. Yeah, no.
It's all really you. Even we were talking about Abraham Hicks. Abraham is an element of Esther.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
Is there really a separation? I don't know. She's chosen to call it that. But is there really?
Right. Exactly. It's all expressed in so many different forms, and there are these individual energies that channel through, but it is derived of the same collective one source, which is us, which is you, which is me, which is all, which is Archangel Michael and cosmic beings. But essentially, these different funnels in which source energy manifests through, like angels or extraterrestrials, in my observation, the reason for that is because just as us as individuals, though we are collectively one race, one organism, we all have different characteristics, and we all have different things that resonate and that don't resonate. So we have all these different gods and guides and deities and energies and angels that hold different characteristics and energies. Like, for example, I will observe that my angels will come through if I need like protection or healing. That's when they come through, or they assist me when I'm doing sessions and healing. But when it's time for me to channel about my mission or my purpose, or I'm about to channel like divine guidance or insight on social media or through my writings, then extraterrestrials will come through.
Oh my God, there's just so much more to say. You know, I tried to close this interview with her, and I just wanted to keep talking. So we just kept going and going, and my Zoom recorder died, and we kept talking. So that's why I have a part 2 coming for you in just a couple days. So if you're listening to this on iTunes, on Spotify, on SoundCloud, be sure to subscribe so you will get notified when part 2 of this conversation continues, you know? And what I love about these conversations is they really never end. I mean, even when it ended, we still kept going because there's so much to say. And I'm just really, really happy and inspired to have met someone to just be able to jam out with and to have you to share it with. So be sure to subscribe. And if you loved this episode, I would love if you could leave me a review in the iTunes store. And as a free gift, I will share with you the first half of my unreleased book, Eat Right for Your Mind Body Type. Simply email a screenshot of your review over to Sahara at eatfeelfresh.com. Again, Sahara, Sahara, at eatfeelfresh.com, and I will send you over the first half of my unreleased book, Eat Right for Your Mind Body Type. Thank you, and namaste.